Where are you going?
Taking a walk.
No, you can't go up.
Lawrence,
It's not an option.
Stop right now.
This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by... Failure to collect taxes. Structuring financial transactions to maintain privacy. Do these sound like crimes to you? And if they are crimes, are they wrong? Well, wrong or not, they were sufficiently troubling to the U.S. federal government that it has spent nearly a decade and probably millions of your dollars to destroy a New Hampshire couple who dared engage in these practices. Here are more of my observations from Day 2 of the Ed and Elaine Brown trial. I'm going to pick up roughly halfway through U.S. Federal Marshal Stephen Monier's testimony. Monier has been describing what he calls a subterfuge that was used, I believe, in 2004 to first capture the Browns. Subterfuge is his word, not mine. Authorities dressed as public service workers and tricked the Browns into visiting their office at a specified time. Then dozens of law enforcement personnel, including a sniper, tackled Ed and brought him into custody, triggering a string of infamous events. Now, when Monier took the stand, I noticed the population in the court seemed to drop. It wasn't that they left while he was testifying. It was just, I guess, between the previous testimony and Monier's testimony, the numbers just drastically reduced. There were probably 40 people in the courtroom during the opening statements before Monier, but when he was there, I think the number was probably down to 20 or so. In both cases, before and after Monier's testimony, everyone in the room, as best I can tell, was a supporter of the U.S. federal government, or they were a journalist. As the judge would leave and enter the courtroom, everyone would stand, except me. To their credit, authorities made no issue of this. Now back to Monier's testimony itself. As I mentioned before, he is being questioned by an overbearing U.S. attorney. I didn't get her name.
Ma'am, get back in the vehicle.
Monier discussed the blockade of Ed and Elaine Brown's home on September 15th of 2007. They were arrested a couple of weeks later for the last time, and Monier described his reaction to the arrest as, quote, greatly relieved, unquote. Monier was questioned about an organization known as s.o.g, the Special Operations Group. They are a federal paramilitary which intermittently surrounded the Brown home. With operatives, non-lethal weapons, and lethal weapons. They discussed specifically the activities of s.o.g's commander, David Robertson. While he was speaking and being questioned, of course some of the people who were questioning him were defense attorneys, and the judge had to repeatedly interrupt the defense attorneys to inform them that no one could hear them, or at least that people could not hear them very well. Now, were they being soft-spoken by accident? Were they being soft-spoken so they would sound like Commander Adama from Battlestar Galactica? Or were they being soft-spoken because they didn't want to sound like the overbearing female attorney, who was way too loud? I don't know. And it's probably an exaggeration to say that no one could hear them. They weren't loud enough for the judge to hear them very well, apparently. Monier named Deputy U.S. Marshal Barry, I don't know his first name, but his last name is Barry, as the person who did what he calls internal surveillance. That means, I believe, he was monitoring blogs. Now, if you could say they have a good cop, bad cop thing going on in the U.S. Federal Building, Barry is probably what I would call good cop. He's very professional, very easygoing, very easy to talk to. He was part of the process of jailing me for 4 days on a distribution of handbills charge and handled everything very courteously. Now, is that just a technique he uses, or is he for real? I don't know. He did once tell me that he would rather be arresting sex offenders than people like me. And he made no big deal out of the fact that I refused to provide most information when they jailed me. Returning again to the testimony of Monier, it was boring. The defense cross-examination of him was boring, and the prosecution questions of him were boring. Monier himself, I think, makes every effort to be boring, but I believe that he is not. When Ed Brown's attorney, Jacopino, questioned Monier, he was pretty terse with him, but I felt like he had a pretty good demeanor with the jury.
Where you going?
Taking a walk.
No, you can't go up there.
All right.
It's not an option.
Stop right now.
When Jacopino, I hope I'm saying his name right, questioned Monier regarding the number of law enforcement personnel deployed against the Browns, he said that it was 170. And Monier said he was not sure that that figure was wrong, but it seemed a little high to him. And I can tell you, it seems a little high to me too. Not that I don't think that was the number that was out there, but it seems like a crazy use of resources to put that many people on a case, especially a case which has no victim. Anyway, Monier said he would not dispute the number, and then U.S. Deputy U.S. Marshal Gary DiMartino took the stand.
Do you have a message for the Ron Paul movement? Do you have a product for the New Hampshire Liberty community? Then stop keeping it a secret. Head on over to
RidleyReport.com. Email Ridley
and purchase an ad. There is no humiliation nor privation Ridley will not endure to ensure your message gets out. RidleyReport.com